Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to join today's LT Professionals event. My name is Rob, and I work for Oxford University Press. And in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about the benefits of using graded readers via the Oxford Reading Club, which is an online platform where you can access lots of Oxford readers. So I hope there'll be some useful information and ideas for everybody as we go through these stages. I'm going to start by talking about or reviewing the benefits of using graded reader material for learners of all ages and levels. And then I'll get into the Oxford Reading Club itself, and we can see a little of the ebooks themselves, some of the functions of the ebooks, and then I'll move on to the learning management system and how you can track your student success online. But before I get started with all of that, I'll just tell you a little bit more about myself. As David mentioned, I've been in Japan a little over 20 years now. I first came in the year 2000, and I was a teacher for 10 years before I joined Oxford University Press in 2010. Like many of you, I imagine, I taught a variety of different ages, from kindergarten students all the way up to adults and business students. And as a teacher, I used to go to the ETJ events quite regularly, particularly when they are held in Ikebukuro. And I got a lot out of those workshops. Particularly, it got me started on the benefits of teaching phonics. Now, as a teacher, one of my favorite resources in any class were graded readers. These are obviously, as I'm sure many of you have found, a fantastic way to get students to build on their existing English knowledge, develop and learn more. So here's just a very quick definition of what we mean by a graded reader. They are books written for language learners containing carefully selected high-frequency language, meaning that the vocabulary is going to be selected from a particular vocabulary list, such as the Oxford 3000 head words. The grammar is going to be very carefully graded for each level as well, so students are not reading difficult structures that they're not ready for. And you can see that there are readers available for all kinds of students of different ages. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, we have the dolphin readers, which are very popular for primary students. I use some of these in my own classes. Also popular for primary students are the classic tales, which retell well-known stories such as Peach Boy and the Gingerbread Man using graded language. And above them, we have the Oxford Bookworms Library, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Books suitable for teenagers to adults, written on a variety of different themes, fiction, non-fiction, and available at many different levels. So this reading material is very carefully graded, available for all students, and there are many benefits to using these books in and outside of class. So just for context, I'd like to quickly run through some of those benefits before I get started with the ebooks. So first of all, a very obvious point, using reading material is very good for students' reading and listening skills. But I think it's worth thinking about how that is for students at different ages. For example, if we're teaching the higher levels of kindergarten or lower levels of primary school, then perhaps students are using picture books to develop maybe their basic phonics knowledge and applying that to reading just a few words on each page. So for example, if students are now comfortable decoding basic CVC words, they can recognize those on the page with a short sentence, add in some memory words as well, and they'll start to build up their knowledge from reading individual words, word level reading, sentence level reading, up to paragraph level reading. And of course, graded readers have plenty of visual support, so they can use the pictures to get the context, apply that, and start to read sentences. When we get to teenagers, graded material can be great for many reasons. Many teenagers in their formal education may be used to an English textbook that has a lot of first language support, a lot of Japanese writing in it, so it can be quite intimidating to see a lot of English text on the page. So they can get used to that with graded material that's easy for them to read. And again, develop their reading fluency. I'm sure many of you have seen teenage learners who try to look at each word in order on the page and translate as they're going. And they're very slow readers. They often forget the meaning of the sentence before they've finished the end of a paragraph, for example. And that can really slow them down, and it's a problem when they try to pass exams, etc. So by reading carefully graded material, hopefully they understand 95% of words on a page, and they're going to start reading more quickly, more fluently, and more confidently. And that's the same for older teenagers, young adults, etc. And of course, graded readers can help with students' listening ability. We have audio versions of every reader now available in a variety of formats, from MP3 files to the audio that's available on ebooks. And again, students can listen to graded material and recognize a lot of words in the audio stream, go from the very difficult stage where they're just trying to listen and translate each word into their head to more fluent listeners who can take in a lot of audio at the time and comprehend it well. So that's how graded readers can be very useful for input in the learning process. And of course, Paul Nation mentions in his 4 strands of learning that large amounts of meaning-focused input are very vital for the learning process, and that a quarter of the time spent learning a language should be spent on meaning-focused input. So graded readers can be a great way to supply material for that aspect of learning. But it's not just for receptive skills. Graded readers can help with all the 4 skills development, including productive skills, writing and speaking. And this is true in many ways. Of course, graded readers can be very useful as a basis for writing assignments, such as a book report, or in-class discussions where students talk about books that they've read, give plot summaries in written or oral form, talk about the meanings, the characters they liked or didn't like, etc., why they liked the story, what they learnt. So there's plenty to talk about and write about for each graded reader. In addition, to be able to produce language confidently, students need to retain plenty of language. And I'll talk about vocabulary retention in the next slide. But I once saw a presentation by Professor Junko Yamanaka, who's a very famous author, often talks about extensive reading. And she mentioned that extensive reading is a great way to program students' autopilot for language proficiency. So they don't need to think too much about what they're going to say or write. The language should naturally flow out of them because they've learnt it at a very deep level from the extensive amount of reading and listening that they have done. So building on that theme, we can also talk about vocabulary acquisition and retention. Of course, learning vocabulary is a huge aspect of language learning. Students need to learn, for example, the first 3,000 most commonly used words in the language, then move that up to 5,000, etc. But how are they going to be able to do that? As a language learner, to learn Japanese, I often used word cards. So I'd write the Japanese word on one side, an English translation on the other, and try to make some time every day to check my word cards, keep count of which words I'm remembering. And that was okay as a kind of introduction to the language to get a foundation. But I found I keep forgetting the words. And it leads to an important question. How many times do I need to see a word as a learner or meet a word to be able to learn it properly? Now, Rob Waring, who I enjoyed listening to earlier today, wrote a paper for us called The Why and How of Using Graded Readers, which is still available from the Oxford Teachers Club website. And in it, he mentions that around 50 to 20 meetings with a word are necessary to learn that word properly. In addition, the quality of a meeting with each word is going to be important. So seeing that word in a useful, engaging, impactful context will affect how well a student is going to learn that word. So because graded readers have been written carefully to include, for example, the 3,000 most common words in the language, students will see that same high frequency vocabulary being repeated many times in the same book and across different books. So they'll easily get their 15 to 20 meetings with that important vocabulary, and hopefully a little more as well, making sure that they acquire and retain the necessary vocabulary for the language. Another important reason to use graded readers is motivation. Now, if any of you have read a book in a second language, perhaps Japanese or another language, you might be familiar with the feeling of before reading, it might feel like quite a daunting task, such as climbing a mountain. But when you finish, you might have this feeling of getting to the peak of the mountain, a great sense of achievement, which will hopefully motivate you to climb more mountains in the future or read more books. In addition, because students, ideally, if they're doing an extensive reading program, will be choosing books that they're interested in, they'll be motivated to read and therefore to learn because they want to know what happens in the story. Or if they're reading a non-fiction reader, they want to get that information about the topic. So there are many ways that using graded readers can be motivating. Some students find setting themselves targets, such as how many books they're going to read each year or each term, or how many words they're going to read, is also another great motivating factor. And that also links to learner autonomy as well. And this is something we hear a lot about in English education these days. In fact, Monbu Kagaksho, the Ministry of Education, actually include this in their current course of study, I believe, for junior and senior high schools. And it's a massive area. How can we get students to be more in charge of the learning process, to make choices about how and what they study, so that they feel in charge and that they have a sense of autonomy and take responsibility for their own learning? Well, one great way we can give students that feeling of autonomy is, again, to allow them to choose which books they're going to read, choose when they're going to read if they're reading outside of class, and again, set themselves some targets for their learning. How many books are you going to read? How many words are you going to read, etc. So learner autonomy is a very powerful tool for mastering languages, and again, using graded readers, especially in an extensive reading program, allows for that sense of autonomy. So those are my main reasons for using graded material, and I'd like to illustrate these now by talking about some ebooks which we have available, and how some of the functions of those ebooks and the learning management system that comes with them really enhances those benefits of reading and listening. So we're going to be using the Oxford Reading Club as an example today. I will share the link a little bit later, but it's an online site where you can access over 1,000 Oxford readers, and you can also download it as an app as well onto your mobile devices and read offline. Here are some of the titles which are available. If we start with the very young learners, we have Learn English with Dora the Explorer and Dora related readers available. Some of these are general readers, some of them are phonics readers as well, so designed to give help students build on that important phonics knowledge to develop their reading skills. There's also the Oxford Reading Club, of a very famous series of readers, originally designed for native children in primary schools in the UK, but also very popular with language learners in Japan as well, following the adventures of the Robinson family and their dog Floppy. We also have the dolphin readers, which I mentioned earlier. These are very good for the lower level readers at primary school. And again, based on a variety of different themes, some related to fiction, some related to non-fiction. And a great non-fiction series is Oxford Read and Discover. And these are popular with the higher levels of elementary school, lower levels of junior high school. And they give very interesting, engaging information on a variety of topics, from science to art to maths. They're great for any kind of cross-curricular learning. Then for teenagers, young adults and adults, we have the Oxford Bookworms Library, and you can see a mixture excuse me, of some of the fiction and non-fiction readers that we have within this series. So some of them link to important topics for developing global citizenship within your students, such as global issues. Some of them are based on famous stories relevant for Japanese students, such as the 47 Ronin, or more famous stories such as the Elephant Man, Sherlock Holmes, and we have some original stories here as well. To access the site, it's available on a personal computer and also mobile devices, including tablets and smartphones. And using our cloud-based ebook technology, you can the system remembers where students have read, or tracks the students' reading across different devices. So a student could wake up in the morning, take out their tablet and start a book, maybe answer a few quiz questions, and close that tablet down, get on the train to school and take out their smartphone, continue reading the same story, and the system will remember what page they got to, how far they are through the book, their quiz answers, etc. I'd like to open up an ebook now and show you some of the functions that accompany it. We're going to look at two different types of reader today, primary readers and readers for secondary and adult learners. So let's start with primary. For primary readers, we have this 5-step reading process where students go through the stages of warm up, listen up, read, speak up, and wrap up for each reader. So I just need to change my screen share, and then I'll open up a book to look at as an example. Okay, so please just bear with me as I go to share a different screen with you. Where is my browser? Here we are. Sorry, I'm on this page, but I need to tab across. There we go, to my Oxford Bookworms library. So as you can see from here, I hope you can all see the Bookworms library screen now. And as you can see here, students can scroll down and select their book from the collection here. So you mentioned earlier, students need to be able to choose their own books for motivation and a sense of autonomy. And you can see there's a great choice for them to do that here. So let's look at a reader for children. This is from the Paw Patrol series, based on the famous cartoon characters. There was a Paw Patrol movie, I believe, that came out last year. So a lot of kids will be familiar with these characters and want to read more of their stories. So we have, for example, a story called Pups Save a Big Pizza. Sounds like a very interesting story. I'd like to learn more. So let's look at step 1. This is the warm-up stage in which students need to learn some important vocabulary that will come up in the reader. So if I click on start here, then this should pop up. Okay, I believe that's just loading up. Okay, so just to double check I'm sharing the right screen. Josh, if you're listening, can you now see the Pup Save a Big Pizza screen with "Let's Play" written underneath? Can you just type in the chat if you can see? You can't see that. Okay.
No, we see the start button.
Oh, thanks, James. Sorry. Let me try that one more time then. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so let's see how students will learn the vocabulary.
Ready. Go.
Tomato.
So we're learning tomato, and we'll see that with a few different pictures.
Tomato. Tomato.
Then we can move on to the next word.
Skateboard. Skateboard. Skateboard.
Etc. And the game continues until students have learnt all the words that they need for this story. So it's going to involve tomatoes and skateboards. I wonder what the story could be. Okay, so if I go back to my screen share here. Okay, the next stage is listen up. And here students are just going to listen to the story before they start reading. So if I press start here, the story should begin.
Reading stars. Level 2. Pups Save a Big Pizza by Hannah Fish.
Is it a pizza?
Yes.
I have big red tomatoes.
Okay,
I have big...
Alex, the skateboard.
okay. Could you hear the audio okay there? Was the audio coming through?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so in that way, the letters are covered over. The students don't need to try and read anything yet. They can just enjoy listening to the story and looking at the pictures for the visual clues. Okay. And in the next stage, read, we get to finally see the text. Okay, so here's the first page of the story again.
Rob, I'm sorry.
Yes,
No,
Rob.
we're not seeing the text still. And I think in the previous slide, we didn't actually see, I didn't realize what we were supposed to be looking at, but I think
Oh, okay.
the last thing we saw were skateboards.
Ah, I see. Sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. So if I go back now. Okay, now can you see the book?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the previous stage, sorry you couldn't see that then, was the same as this picture, but we had blocked out the text. So students couldn't see the text, but they could listen to the audio and look at these pictures to see the story. So on this kind of page, students can look at the pictures, and we could maybe do some communication practice. How many squirrels are in the tree? 3 squirrels, etc. And what color is the dog's hat? It's a blue hat. And again, we can play the audio this time as well and have students listen and read along.
Oh, now no audio. If we're supposed to-
No, that's not coming through for me either. Sorry about that, but the audio is there if you want students to listen and read along. And you can see again, for those students who've done some basic phonics practice, we have some CVC words for them to read. So b, I, g, big, r, e, d, red, big red tomatoes, etc. And if you'd like to zoom in and have the students look at some details in the pictures, we can do that as well. So this has made it much bigger. So you want to see what's about to happen. Look, the boy is about to step on the skateboard. Oh dear. Okay, so that was the read stage, and students go through that to finish the story. And then the next stage is going to be speak up, where students can do some speaking practice. So let me just open that one up.
I'm hungry.
Okay, and I just need to change the screen share there. Okay, can you see a screen that says I'm hungry?
Yes.
Great news. Okay, thank you. So here students can listen to an example word.
I'm hungry.
Could you hear that okay?
Yes.
Great. And then they practice recording their own voice to mimic what they heard. I'm hungry.
Excellent.
Oh, and I get some instant feedback on that. So I can play my own recording. I'm hungry. And compare with the original.
I'm hungry.
But if the parents would also like some extra analysis of how good their students' pronunciation is, it's here as well. You can see I got 92% and 93% here for my syllables. And I got some very high scores for my phonemes as well. The sound in hungry, for example, I got 100% for. So I can be very proud of that. Of course, that's great for the students as well. And their parents can tell them their scores. And we can see as teachers or parents kind of which sounds they need a bit more help with. So really useful for pronunciation there. And then in the final stage, students would do some extra vocab memorizing work. Okay, so if I just go quickly back to my main screen here, that was a reader for young learners, but I'd also like to show a reader for teenagers and adults. So let's look at the 47 Ronin as an example. The 5-step reading process was just for young learners. We just have the read stage for teenagers and adults. So I just need to stop my share once more and share this screen so that we can read the 47 Ronin together. Okay, so here you can see we have basically the same book as the printed version available on a screen, and students can again listen to the audio and read along. So let's just listen to the first page of the 47 Ronin.
Samurai. In the old days in Japan, the samurai were warriors, fighting men. They served a daimyo, one of the great Japanese lords. They lived in his castle, fought for him, and died for him. They fought with long swords and short swords, spears and bows and arrows. They were brave, fierce men, famous for their loyalty to their lord.
Okay, so for some readers, we can choose between British and American English. This particular reader only has British English. Another thing students can do is slow the audio down, if that makes it easier for them to listen, to understand.
Samurai. In the old days in Japan, the samurai were warriors.
Okay, so that's super slow for students who find listening difficult. They can speed it up a little bit more as well. Now, students might also find some new words on this page. Again, as I mentioned, they should understand about 95% of the words on the page. But maybe one word they might want to look up here is fierce. They were brave, fierce men. What does fierce mean? That's a new word for me. So I can look that up in my dictionary by clicking here and typing in. And we get a definition. So you can see 2 different uses of fierce: angry and wild, as in a fierce dog, with some bilingual support here, a translation in Japanese, and very strong, the fierce heat of the sun. Okay, well, that's useful to know, but I also need to see these words in different contexts as well. So it's useful to see a variety of example sentences, which I can see from this tab. Okay, so here's the word fierce being used in a variety of different Oxford Reader series. So we get a really good sense of how fierce is used. Now, as a student, I want to keep track of which words I'm learning in each book, so I can click on Add to Vocabulary List, and it tells me it's been added. And then if I click here on my vocabulary, you can see there is fierce. And if I click on the word, it takes me back to the dictionary definition. So in that way, I can keep track of exactly which words I'm learning as I go through this story. Now, the book itself is very easy to navigate online. If we click here, you can see, find which page you want to read, if you want to skip forward. And we also have some quizzes at the end, which could be useful for just extra vocabulary learning. For example, crosswords. You can see the clue number 2 here across. In old Japan, the something were famous fighting men. Okay, that relates to page 1. So I can click here. I think the answer is samurai. Samurai. Okay, and I can check whether I've got the answer right with the automatic marking. Yes, I was correct. Okay, so there are plenty of nice little functions to help students as they read the books online. I just need to go quickly back to my PowerPoint before I finish up, so please just bear with me. Okay, so here are the benefits for secondary to adult students. It's very easy to navigate these stories. You can listen to the audio as you read, access the dictionary, keep your own word lists. Oh, there's a voice recording function for these books as well. You can record voice memos too, and the automatic marking for the quizzes at the end. So those are all of the benefits for the learners. But let's look at how the learning management system helps you educators to track your students' reading success online. Here you can see the gradebook for your students' class. If you have all of your students join your class online, you can see how many books they have read. You can see how many words they've read, how much time they've spent studying. And for the primary readers, you can listen to their recorded sentences. You can also click here to put them in order according to who has read the most books, who has read the most words, who has spent the most time studying, etc. You can also assign books online. Here you can see the assigned books for a particular class. If I want to assign a new book, I can simply click on New Assignment, type in the name of the book in the search box on the right here, and choose from the drop-down list. So I want my students to read My Hat, and then assign a start and a due date for the book. In a similar way, you can assign reading goals for your students. For example, for this class, I want them to read 2,500 words this term. So I've set that, and the system will remind them of how many words they have to read. So in these ways, we can keep it motivating for the students, as well as choosing their own books. They're working towards these SMART targets. You can also generate reports for each individual student, which show you a lot of very useful, granular information about their reading habits, including their reading patterns. Which day of the week are they reading the most? What time of day do these students read? So for example, this student is reading a lot at midnight. I'm worried she's not getting enough sleep. You can also see exactly which books they've read recently and how their reading is progressing over the year. You can also type in some comments here, download this report, and send it to your students. So as well as tracking the students' reading habits yourself, you can also help motivate your students further by sending them their reports. So those are all of the benefits of the Oxford Reading Club, which I wanted to highlight today. Again, for motivation and choice, you can have students access over 1,000 different books from those various reader series. So they'll definitely be able to find an age-appropriate, level-appropriate book, which they are interested in and motivated to read. You can use it on a variety of different devices, so students can choose where and when they're going to read for even more learner autonomy. The 5-step reading process really supports those primary students who may be reading outside of class, perhaps with a parent. You can adjust the audio, make it slower or faster for extra challenge. Students can help with their vocabulary learning by using the dictionary and customized word lists. And the learning management system, with its assigned books function, helps teachers to manage and track their students' learning. So for more information about this very useful online platform for reading, please do visit the site at the URL at the bottom of the screen there. I'm just going to copy and paste it into the chat. So please click on the link in the chat there to go through to the site and learn more. For more on the general topic of using graded readers for things like extensive reading or to supplement your course book, we have focus papers available online from the Oxford Teachers Club. So again, if you click through to the link on the screen, which again, I'm going to just quickly paste it into the chat, you can download this and many more very useful material for free once you become a member of the Oxford Teachers Club, which is free to join. So all of those benefits, I hope you could see that using graded readers is very useful for students' overall language learning. It develops all 4 skills, including both receptive and productive skills. It helps students to acquire vocabulary and the building blocks of language at a very deep level, motivates learners and gives them autonomy over their learning. That's everything from me. I believe we have just a couple of minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type into the chat. I'd be happy to answer.